Okay, so this is the next episode of Draw With Me. Um, been a few weeks since I last did one of these. I've been pretty busy getting on with this commission that I've been working on. This image is a little bit different. This is kind of some of my own personal work. But the commission that I'm working on does feature these guys, which you've probably seen me post about. So I thought maybe I'll sketch on these guys, do a bit of a sketch, and record another Draw With Me video for you guys. I will show you some bits and pieces of the commission I have been working on. Let me have a look. Not these guys. Again, this is more personal work, but I was just doing some acrylic sketches. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to paint like a bit of a cavalry charge right now, which is an image that I've always wanted to create. And I just so happen to have the perfect opportunity to do so. But the commission that I'm working on is the Polish Hussars, or the winged Hussars. This is one figure from the commission there. So we're not doing a cavalry charge for the commission. We're actually doing like a more relaxed scene, which is actually rather nice. I think it's a really nice scene to paint. I think it's going to look great on a wall. So I'm really excited about this. But I also took this commission as an opportunity to really practice drawing these guys and do a few sketches for myself. Let's have a look here. You can see I was sketching up these guys for the commission as well. So some of these guys will be featured on the wall. I've changed the poses a little bit, somewhat. That's the thing, you know, when I'm working on commissions, I really, I do a lot of sketching and I do a lot of playing around to find the image that I want. So it's not a very quick process because I do work traditionally. But it's a very rewarding and fulfilling one. But I think I'm at the point now where I've got the collection of sketches that I need. And I think we'll be starting on the mural very, very soon. So when we do start painting the mural, I'll try and record some of the process of that for you guys so you guys can see. And, you know, I'll do like a video of like the whole journey from start to finish. So like from sketch to finished painting. So that'll be great. In the meantime, though, I'm going to do a quick video for you guys. I've got a lot of work to do on this commission. I'm in the middle of doing some oil color studies. So I'm using oil paint and I'm doing like small paintings of these guys and just figuring out the colors. So I've got to get a move on with that today. But I think I'll sketch on this just as a bit of a warm-up. And then I'll get a move on with the commission for the rest of the day, I reckon. So it's going to be a pretty quick video today. Maybe like an hour. Not like the last video. I think the last video was like 10 hours long, which is a little bit ridiculous, but, you know, that's just art. Sometimes it takes that long. But this scene that I'm painting, similar subject matter to the composition that I'm working on. So I'm still working with the Polish cavalry. But this is more like a cavalry charge that I'm painting. And I think it's just an awesome scene. And I've always wanted to paint a cavalry charge. I was thinking about maybe like English knights or French knights or something like that. But, you know, when this commission came, I was commissioned to paint these Polish Hussars, and I thought, man, this is like the perfect subject. So it's been a great opportunity learning how to draw these guys properly and exploring the different pieces of armor. And I'm hoping to get a very good artwork out of them. Well, I've actually got several good artworks out of them, like from these sketches alone. So it's been a very, very cool project. But it's been a very big one. I will say it's been pretty massive. There was a hell of a lot of work to do. I've been doing graphite pencil sketches. I've been doing acrylic sketches in paint as well. And This week I'll be doing some color sketches with oil paints. And I think the color sketches are basically the final stage of the sketching process. So once we've got the colors figured out, then that's basically it. I'll go to the client. I'll show them what I got. And, you know, if everything's all in order, then we get it on the wall. And everything should be in order. Like, I have stayed pretty close to the design brief. Anytime I meet up with a client for a commission, I just make sure to bring my sketchbook, and I just take lots of notes about the image that they're describing. So I'll ask them, what kind of perspective are we using? What kind of scene or what kind of atmosphere are we envisioning here? I just kind of need anytime I take on a commission, I just need to get an idea of the subject. And it's just a vague idea. Like, as an artist, I do believe that artists should take control of the creative process. Because obviously we are more trained in things like composition and color palette and things like that. So it's very important that if you're going to be doing commissions, you want to make sure you're taking control of the creative process and that you're not letting the client take too much control, which to a lot of people that doesn't sound right. A lot of people think that that the client should have control over the image, and I'll tell you right now, that's just plain wrong. Because the client might have a vague idea of what they want on their wall, but they don't know the first thing about composition. They don't know the first thing about proportions or anatomy or color theory or anything like that. So when it comes to accepting a commission, I will just all I need is a vague impression of what we're doing. That's it. Like, I don't need them to describe in detail, because quite frankly, a lot of the time clients don't really have an idea of what they want. And I'm also a believer that if you let the artist take control, if you let the artist do what he's best at doing, you actually get a much better result. Might take a little bit more time, but it'll be worth it in the end. So I have done commissions in the past where I did let clients take control because I thought that's what you're meant to do. And I'll tell you right now, that's a very big mistake. I did this one commission. This was quite a while ago. And I used to do lots of portrait commissions. And I just had this one client that was like, they were kind of micromanaging everything. And they were yeah, basically they were just trying to like micromanage. Sorry, I'm just trying to focus on this. They were just trying to like micromanage the whole process. They kept making, in my opinion, very unnecessary changes to the image for like no good reason at all. And basically what I did was I requested, because it was a portrait commission of like a family member, I requested a better reference photo. I requested better lighting and just like, but anyway, they didn't take any of it on board. They were quite adamant that, this is the photo they want to work with and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, by the time that I finished drawing the portrait, and I, I drew it to their instruction, and they did not like it. They didn't like it, despite the fact that I basically followed their orders. they still didn't like it, and I knew that was going to happen. I should have been more firm, um, or better yet, I probably should have just walked away from the commission altogether. I think if you're dealing with terribly stubborn clients, I don't think you want to work with them because, like I said, they're not an artist. Like, they don't really know what looks good. That might sound quite arrogant on my part. Like, they know the kind of artwork they like. And if they're a fan of your artwork, then, they should have a bit more trust in you. Clients, what's that old saying? It's like the customer is right in matters of taste, right? So they know the kind of artwork that they like, but they don't know the technicalities. They don't know what goes into making an artwork. So, therefore, it makes sense that they really should not be having control over the creative process. And so, I would say if you're dealing with a terribly stubborn client, as I have sometimes have done in the past, my advice is walk away. Like, don't take the job on because it's not going to turn out well. I think there are two prerequisites. There are two things that are required when it comes to commissioning a work of art. The first requirement is, let's say you're the customer and you're going to commission an artist. You need to do your research on that artist. You need to make sure that you like the artwork that they produce. You should make sure that you like their paintings and that you're doing your research on them, because that's terribly important. You don't want to just commission just anybody. I mean, like, I consider myself, I draw a lot of artworks, right? Like, I do architectural things, but I also draw this more historical stuff as well. So let's just say for this example, I'm a historical artist. You would not commission a historical artist to do a pet portrait, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not what they do. So just because they are skilled in what they do doesn't mean that they are the right artist for the job. You don't commission an architect to do pet portraits, or even portraits maybe, like, it just doesn't really work that way. Unless they really want to, and unless they've probably got a knack for it. But as a client, you want to make sure that you're commissioning the right artist for the right job. Just because artists can draw and paint well doesn't mean that they're going to just accept anything. Artists generally are very passionate people. They take a lot of pride in their work, and they really want to give you something good, right? They want to give you an artwork that they are proud of, but also something that you can be proud of. And they're not going to be able to produce that kind of artwork if you're hiring them for the wrong job. So, does that mean that I can't draw a pet portrait? It's like, no, I can draw animals. I mean, I draw horses a lot. This horse looks a little bit funky, but, I've drawn lots of horses and sometimes dogs and things like that, but, I'm not a pet portrait artist. It's just not what I do. It's not what I'm passionate about. And it doesn't matter how good I am at drawing. Like, if I'm not invested in the subject, it's just never going to turn out well. It'll always be kind of, whatever. So that's really the first prerequisite, is making sure that you are commissioning an artist whose work you actually like, and you have to make sure you understand their work and you understand what kind of artwork they make. It's no good commissioning the wrong guy for the wrong job. It's kind of like commissioning. It's like hiring a plumber to do your electricity. It's like you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong tradie. So that's not smart. And the second prerequisite, it's kind of what I mentioned earlier, is that you should let the artist take control of the creative process. They know a lot more about the creative process than you do, and it's sometimes very stunning to me that people think that they know better than the artist when it comes to creating artwork. That's not to say, that's not to say that you can't offer your opinion. That's not to say that you can't offer suggestions in what you want to change and what you want to see change in the artwork. But it's a very tricky balance because you want to avoid micromanaging them too much. So this commission that I've taken on for the Polish club, it's been a lot of fun so far, and they were quite good in that they have sort of just let me do my thing. But they've given me, vague directions. So if we go back to the sketches that I did. So basically they said, Polish Hussars, men on horseback, get the wings in there. He really wanted to see the wings. He wanted to get an impression of how long the lances are, because they had the lances they were carrying were 5 meters tall. So I had to kind of figure out a way to fit that into the composition, which I think I have found a way, but I'll maybe do another video on that. And a frontal perspective, we kind of wanted this frontal perspective, kind of like winter, snowy, misty atmosphere. And that was basically it. That was basically the directions I was given. There wasn't really much more to it than that, and that's actually perfect. When you are commissioning an artist and you've got an idea in your head, you really just kind of want to keep it a bit more on the vague side. You don't want to be micromanaging everything. Just kind of give them a few general directions, perspective, lighting, what the figures are, what they're doing. And that's probably it. Other than that, leave them to it. Because all an artist needs is a little bit of direction. That's it. And just a little bit. If you try to micromanage them too much, what ends up happening is that the final result often doesn't turn out very well because you're not leaving enough room for the creativity. Artists are creative people, but in order to be creative, you need to give them a bit of room to breathe. And if you let them do their thing, obviously, you need to commission an artist whose work you like and who you trust to do the best job possible. That's the thing. If you've got a good artist and you like their work, then after that, it's just up to you to trust in them and just let them do what they're good at doing. But yeah, it's been a very fun commission so far. It's put my skills to the test a little bit because these cavalrymen are very, very detailed. And it's been a challenge trying to simplify a lot of that detail. And to get it to read well in a drawing and a painting. But I think, I've got the acrylic sketch pretty much finished, so I'm going to take that into them and show them. Sorry, I'm just thinking about what I'm doing here. It's hard to talk and draw at the same time. Yeah, it's definitely been a test of my ability because there's so much detail in the armor that they're wearing, and trying to draw them in certain perspectives has been an interesting challenge, but it's been a very fun one. I did a lot of research on the armor that they were wearing and like the weapons they carry. So that's the thing. When I take on a historical commission, I really try to go the extra mile and do a lot of research on the figures that I'm actually drawing. I was reading about the siege of Vienna. And their victory over the Ottoman Empire. I think there was also like a Polish-Swedish war that happened at some point in history, and these guys just absolutely decimated the Swedes. It's been very interesting reading about the winged Hussars, and I'll tell you right now, from what I've read of them, you do not want to mess with them. That's the one part I will tell you. You do not want to be on their bad side. These guys were basically just medieval tanks. They were just medieval tanks. I say medieval. I think technically it was more late Renaissance period. Maybe early Baroque period. These guys were active. So not quite medieval. Now, another reason I'm taking a bit more time on this commission is because I'm trying to develop like an original image, which I pretty much have figured out now. I've got the composition figured out. I know what it is I'm drawing. But you know, because I do draw from my head a lot, I like to just kind of give it the time it needs to fully develop. And I think it's also a very, very important skill to learn, drawing from your head, because it'll just help you to avoid a lot of copyright issues, which I think some artists don't really think about. There's a lot of artists that copy from photographs, and I don't think they realize that, you know, if somebody sees that, you know, if somebody sees that your painting or your drawing or whatever has copied their work, you could be open to, I don't know, copyright issues, legal issues, you know? So that's not really the kind of shit you want to invite into your life. I think you really want to be a bit smarter than that. And, you know, if you are going to use photo material, then I think you should just try and find a way to make it more original. Like, just use a lot of references and mix them all up together to create a original work of art. That's what a lot of artists do. But another reason I like drawing from my head a lot is simply because it's just more fun. I don't really have a lot of fun drawing from photos. Sometimes I study from them. You know, I think it's good to study from a reference, but you know, when I'm composing an image, I just prefer to put the references away, just move my pencil around and see what happens. And, you know, yeah, it takes a bit longer, but you do get a much more original image out of it. And I don't think using photographs is always beneficial. I think sometimes photo references serve to confuse more than inform. If you want to use a reference, I would suggest actually looking at artworks. So I would suggest looking at paintings from the old masters. because you will learn a lot more that way. You'll actually learn what kind of colors they're using. You'll learn what kind of brushstrokes they're making. And you'll also learn how they are creating the illusion of detail. Because a lot of the 19th century painters, their paintings were detailed, but they also simplified a lot of other parts of the painting as well. And I think that's a very important skill to develop when you're creating, realistic art. You want to sort of master the ability to simplify, because simple is effective. You don't want to make everything in the drawing overwhelmingly detailed, because then it just becomes a mess, and there's just no real structure in the image. Compositionally, it's just a complete mess. So you really want to avoid that as much as you can. You want to avoid going too detailed. And again, this commission has been a huge learning curve for that, because basically the commission is like basically like an army of cavalrymen like this, and painting an army or the illusion of an army is quite a big job. And so I'm actually kind of looking for opportunities to simplify a lot of the figures in the background, which I think will actually look better, because that will bring the figures in the foreground forward, and you get that real sense of atmosphere. And that's something that I've struggled with. I've struggled with the simplification of detail. Like sometimes I go a bit overboard on the details, and just because the drawing is detailed doesn't mean it actually looks that good. So again, this commission has given me an opportunity to refine my drawing practice and learn new painting techniques, and even some drawing techniques too. And yeah, these past few weeks since I started learning, I've already learned a lot. Like I feel like my skills are definitely improving. Because in the past I used to take a lot smaller commissions. I used to do like oil paintings of portraits and things like that. Like, all of the historical artwork that I do, I kind of just kept to myself. But this commission is, it's going to be a historical artwork, and so it's given me an opportunity to really, I guess, put my skills to the test. Everything that I've learned about art so far is kind of going to be going in to this mural, so it's going to be good. It's going to be, it's a great project. Okay. Now, how much time has passed? So we're at half an hour now. Haven't really drawn that much. I think this sketch is going to be one of those sketches that just kind of develops as it goes. I've been doing a few of those lately. Just going to kind of get an impression of these sort of patterns in the armor. I don't really think there's a quick way to paint these guys, unless you want a very super impressionistic view of them, which is fine too. But for this image, I kind of want these guys to be slightly more on the detailed side, you know. Again, I don't want to indulge myself too much in the details. I don't want the drawing to be like overwhelming with detail, but because these characters, I'm planning on having them in the foreground of the painting. They are going to have to be drawn quite well. So that's why I'm taking my time with these guys. I'm drawing this this cross that they've got, like sometimes in the armor. So basically what I did, I researched as much of the armor as possible that they were wearing, and there's different variations of them. And that's true for all armies in the past. Like, you know, because everything was handcrafted back in those days, things were a bit more unique. You know, things weren't just carbon copies. Not like everything today where everything is just like mass produced, you know. And so, you know, there are variations in some of their armor, which is kind of what I'm trying to depict here. Like, he's got like different shaped plates and ornamental detail. He's got a different helmet. Whereas this guy, his helmet doesn't have like a visor. It's just, you know, his face is exposed. And he's got like this knight's cross on his chest plate. I was about to call it a Templar cross, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that's quite accurate. The Templars were, I don't know, were the Polish army, were they? I don't know if they were part of the Knights Templar. I'm not quite sure. I think they were at war with Germany in the Middle Ages, because the Germans, they had the Teutonic Knights, and I think there may have been like a Polish-Lithuanian Teutonic war going on. I have to actually read the history books again. It's quite hilarious that I think of myself as a historical artist, and a lot of my understanding of history is rather hazy. But you know, my job as a historical artist is it's not to know the full story. You know, my job is to bring the image to life. That's really my job as a historical artist. And even though, you know, I do want my paintings to be historically accurate and true to the source material, sometimes you got to break the rules a little bit. You know, it's like that old saying, you know, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Because, you know, historians are obviously very passionate about history, and they can tell you just about the history of whatever time period they specialize in. But the thing about historians is they don't know the first thing about making a work of art. And, you know, sometimes you've got to break the rules a little bit in order to get a better image. You know, like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, one of my favorite films is Gladiator by Ridley Scott. Not historically accurate at all. At all. Bit of a slap in the face to historians, that film. But you know what? It's a damn good film. It's a really, really good film. It's one that you can watch several times over and never get bored. Um, like I first watched Gladiator when I was, oh, I don't know, how old was I? I must have been like 9 years old when I first watched it, and I still love it even today. And it's not even nostalgia; like it genuinely is a good film. So that's the thing. Historians will tell you the history of things, and that's great. I love that. But they don't know the first thing about making a good film, and they don't know the first thing about making a work of art. And sometimes you've just gotta stray from the history a little bit so you can get to the image that you truly want to make. So this figure that I'm sketching, he's slowly coming to life. I've still got a ways to go. He's very far off from the quality of this guy. Um, that being said, though, I don't want him to be as detailed as this guy. Like I'll still keep refining him here, but I don't want him to compete with this guy too much in the foreground. I think I'll kind of detail his face and the helmet, and then a lot of this down here would probably be in shadow. In fact, I think it should be in shadow. Right. What am I thinking? I want some shadow under this part here. So I'm kind of thinking, like I'm just, again, this is very sketchy right now, but I'm already thinking about where I want to place the lights and the shadows. I will just go back a previous page to just show you the general sketch. So I actually sketched these guys with acrylic paint. So this is the value sketch that I did with acrylics. And I think this is kind of giving you a better idea of the lighting scenario. So this is basically the size of the canvas that I'm working with. So this painting is intended to be just a fragment of the full painting that I eventually want to do, which will probably take me a while. But this painting that I'm working on is just going to capture these two guys in the foreground, a little bit of atmosphere, just gives me an idea for what the full painting should be like. And I really like it. I did a secondary thumbnail sketch here as well, just to, so this was like the basic thumbnail. I wanted like a white horse, like a really white horse in this part here, because there's so much shadow in this part of the canvas. I thought it'd be nice to have a white horse sort of contrast that in the foreground. And, you can see here, this is the refinement. And I think that's a really cool dynamic composition. I think the lights look pretty good in this one. So this value sketch is basically, it's very bare bones. It's a very vague impression of what the painting's going to be like. But this is kind of how it starts. Well, actually, normally it starts with just a very scribbly line sketch, and then I refine it. But each sketch is basically a refinement of the last one. And these sketches, these acrylic thumbnails, are a very important part of the entire process of making a painting, because you know, a lot of people think a painting is about color, and you know, it is. Your choice of color matters, uh, but the black and white, like the values, the lights and the shadows, are actually more important because that's what you're actually seeing in a painting. You're seeing the distribution of light and shadow, and shape and silhouette and composition and all of those things. So this is a crucial stage of any artwork, and you should really be doing quite a lot of these. And they're fun to do, you know, like they're not brilliant, they're not like very pretty. It's not really something you put in a frame, but you can solve a lot of problems just doing these, and you can solve them very quickly too. So this is kind of the beginning stages. And what I'm doing here with pencil is I'm just refining it now. I'm just refining the idea. So my pencil sketches are basically a refinement of the proportions of the figures, and they are a refinement of the shapes and the details and just the more technical stuff. So that previous sketch that I showed you, that figures out the lights and the shadows. This sketch is intended to figure out the details and some of the anatomy, like, you know, like the hands, for example. This sketch is intended to figure out all of those problems. So when I approach a painting, each sketch has its purpose. The acrylic value sketch, the objective of that sketch is to figure out the lights and the shadows. The objective of this sketch that I'm doing right now is to figure out the technical parts, the details, the expressions, the facial expressions of the characters, the horse anatomy, the ornamental detail, all of that stuff. That's the purpose of the pencil sketch for me, which is why I spend quite a long time on them, because, you know, it's very important that I figure this stuff out before I jump into the final painting. So you can see why the old masters spent quite a long time on a painting. They did not whip them up out of thin air, like a lot of people believe. It was a very deliberate, very slow, very plodding process. And, you know, I think it was Repin, he actually spent 10 years on one of his paintings. I mean, the painting is like 5 meters wide, you know, probably 3 meters tall, something like that. But, you know, he did like massive monumental paintings. But yeah, there was one of his paintings, and I can't remember which one, but it took him like 10 years to do. He didn't just work on that for 10 years. He was obviously doing other commissions as well. He was putting food on the table. You know, as an artist, you kind of have to have a bit of a production line going. You can't just work on one project. That's a very good way to impoverish yourself. Got to take on multiple projects and just keep yourself busy doing multiple different things. It's actually better for your practice too. I'm just having a look at the video. The video has gone a little bit overexposed, so let me just bring that down a bit. There we go. Better. All right. So yeah, as I was saying before, this sketch is all about figuring out the technical things. You can see, like, this is his hand here. It's meant to be his hand. It's not drawn in very well. So that's something that I have to figure out in this sketch. Things like that. Again, this proportion of the horse might not be very accurate. I don't know. I think his body in relation to where the horse is might need to be shifted. Perhaps that's something I can do in another sketch. Um, but yeah, drawing is basically just a hell of a lot of problem solving. That's really all it is. You're just problem solving, and the more you problem solve, the better the result will be. Whereas if you just like if I just rushed into the final painting for this piece, it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. It might not be a disaster. It might be okay, but it would never be as good as, if I had just put more patience into it and put a little more effort into it. So, but that being said, a sketch doesn't have to take a lifetime. Like, I drew this guy in one day. Took about a full day to draw him, though, because he was very detailed. I probably went a little more detailed than I wanted to, but I really like it, so I figured, that's nice. See if I can do the same with this guy over here. But yeah, I think a lot of this is going to be shadow. I want to obscure a lot of that, make him sort of fade out into the surrounding atmosphere. Just going to look very nice, I think. It's basically just scratching away. That's what we're doing. That's the objective right now. But yeah, this guy is going to take me a while, I think, to really refine. It's a very dynamic image. It demands a bit of time, I think. But I think I've got a good start. And he's not taken me long. I started scribbling him in this morning when I was at the coffee shop earlier. And, I liked the gesture, so I thought I should probably record this one. Just to keep YouTube happy. Also gives you guys a bit of a sneak peek into what I'm doing for this commission. But yeah, I'm really excited to get that mural on the wall. It's going to look awesome. It took me a while to sort of figure out the image and the placement of the figures, but now that it's all kind of falling into place, I'm really liking the image, and I think it's going to be something pretty special. So I'll make sure I record the process of painting the mural for you guys as well, because I think it's going to be I think it's going to make for a pretty cool, almost educational video, I guess. Just gives you a bit more insight into how to go about painting big projects. But the secret is lots and lots of sketching. I remember somebody asked me, I don't think it was someone on YouTube, it was someone else, maybe on Instagram, but anyway, one of my followers, they asked me if, why do I sketch traditionally and why don't I just do it digitally? because it's going to be faster to do it that way. And I mean, there's a couple of reasons there. The first reason I think is I don't really enjoy drawing digitally. And I don't really think it's that much quicker, because even when I'm drawing using Photoshop, I'm still drawing. You know, it's not like I'm using a lot of the bells and whistles that come with that program. I'm literally just drawing on a tablet. So, I mean, yeah, I could probably develop the image faster, but I don't think I would. I'm just not sure if I would really get the result I'm going for anyway. But, you know, another important reason is that I think this is something that a lot of people don't consider. These sketches, I put a lot of effort into them because I kind of want them to look like finished works of art as well. And so what I'm doing is I'm also, you know, I'm doing a lot of these preparatory sketches, but I'm also trying to make them look good. And by doing that, I'm building a more complete body of work. And it's just another thing that I can put into a frame and eventually sell. So, you know, I think if you put some effort into your sketches and do them traditionally and make them look good, it's no really longer a sketch at that point. It actually is basically a finished work of art in its own right, and you could put it into a frame and sell it. So that's another reason why I like to work traditionally. Whereas, you know, I don't really think you can do that digitally. I mean, you could do prints. You could do like a digital painting and do prints of it, if you want to do that. But I don't know. I just like making original works of art, to be honest. I guess the final reason I prefer to work traditionally is because I don't know, I just feel like with the rise of AI and digital, I feel like human beings are kind of losing the ability a little bit to draw traditionally. And I think that's just kind of sad. And I think people get a little bit too comfortable. They think we'll never lose the ability to draw traditionally. But I don't agree. I think we already are losing the ability. When you compare the works that we do to the Renaissance masters and the 19th century masters, it's like night and day, you know? It's just easy to see that they were way more skilled than we were. And I also remember reading a story about how I think the ancient Greeks, they used to know how to paint realistically, and I think the Romans did too. And then, I don't know, at some point during the Roman Empire, the status quo shifted, and apparently a lot of the artists in the Roman Empire were forced to make their paintings look more like Egyptian hieroglyphics, apparently. I don't know. I don't know how much truth there is to this story. But apparently, a very, very long time ago in ancient times, human beings did have the ability to paint realistically. And then at some point in time, they just lost it. And that skill was gone for like 1,000 years, because it wasn't until the Renaissance came about was when we started, you know, relearning how to paint realistically again. And we started learning perspective and anatomy in depth. And, you know, the Renaissance artists, I think I think there is some truth to that story, though, because I think Da Vinci studied from the works of Vitruvius, and Vitruvius was like this Roman engineer from way back, and a lot of Da Vinci's anatomical drawings were based on the works of Vitruvius. It's like that sketch, the Vitruvian Man, for example. Like, that's why it's called the Vitruvian Man, because he was using Vitruvius's proportions. I also think the ancient Greek sculptures and the Roman sculptures are also proof that human beings had this uncanny ability to create realistic artwork. And at some point, it was just lost. And it took a very long time until we regained that ability. And, the Renaissance artists, they paved the way for a lot of what we know about drawing and painting, but it still took another 500 years to develop. Throughout those centuries, art was just gradually getting more and more realistic. We went through the Baroque era, and then we went through the 19th century, and it was perhaps the 19th and early 20th centuries where realism really reached its height. But that was a very, very gradual process that happened throughout the ages. It didn't happen overnight. And so I think it's very sad that we may be on the cusp of losing a lot of these techniques just simply due to our own laziness. So, that's another reason why I reject digital. I still have respect for digital artists. Like, some of my favorite artists do work digitally a lot of the time, but they also work traditionally too. They don't let digital replace the traditional skills. But yeah, I typically try to avoid digital where I can because, I think it's kind of making us a little bit lazy in a sense. And it's just not as fun. It's not as fun, Traditional drawing is always going to be way more fun to me. And, there's this myth that digital is faster. But personally, I'm not really sure if that's the case. Like, you can do a quick sketch traditionally if you're good enough. It takes a long time to get to that point, but you can do very quick sketches. I think the key to doing a quick sketch is to have an objective. This sketch that I'm doing is not intended to be quick. It's intended to be more refined. But if I did want to make it a quick sketch, I could just do a line drawing and not worry about toning it in and rendering. It's usually the rendering that takes ages. But there's nothing to stop me from just doing a line drawing of these guys and just doing it in like an hour. So you can sketch quickly traditionally. You just gotta just sort of trying to think of the word. Just have a bit of a goal in mind, like what the sketch is intended for. Anyway, this guy is kind of getting there. Yeah, I think we got a long way to go. He's got like this shoulder pad here, and I'm thinking it would look cool if I sort of sketch an impression of like the Polish eagle on it. Or maybe just a regular eagle. I don't know, some kind of eagle insignia. I'll figure out what to do with this, but I would love to do something with that. Yeah, it's looking cool. Anyway, so that's about an hour. That's probably about all I got time for on personal projects. So I better get a move on with this commission. But either way, I hope you enjoyed it. I know I rambled on a bit this time. My brain is just a little bit fried, I think. Hopefully I will be a bit more articulate in the next one. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys later.